Hey there YouTube, welcome back. This is the Allegheny Northern in N scale, and I know you are probably thinking I was going to miss a week, and no, I would not do that to you, not if I could help it. Just been really busy with life and haven't been down in the training room in about a week and a half, so I'm running just a little bit behind and getting everything updated and posted and etc. etc. But something that I did do is I posted 2 polls on the community tab recently, and I want to talk about those while you watch these times go by. And the first one is, do you detail your locomotives and freight cars? And most of you said yes, whether it was just some weathering or if you were going super detailed, whatever it was, most of you were doing something. And then almost right there was the group that was not doing anything. I want to say it was like a 42 percent split here on people that weren't doing things versus people that were doing things. And it's interesting because I think I thought most of us did some degree of detailing, but I can see where that would be intimidating. I know weathering intimidates a lot of people because, yeah, you're going to screw up a model or two in the process, but you're going to learn a lot. So, but there's that balance of, oh, I just paid $50 for this car or $300 for this locomotive. Do I really want to chance it? Well, I mean, some people that's a yes, and some people it's a no. And for those of you who that's a no, and you don't have old cars that you can work on in practice, then you're never going to take that plunge because you're not going to make your first model, a $300 mistake. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but just because I assume that a lot of people took that modeling not only to their scenery and everything, but to their actual rolling stock and locomotives. I mean, if you see this beautiful layout and it's all detailed and it's weathered and everything's painted and it looks realistic, and then you've got this pristine, shiny model train running through it, for me, it takes all of the realism out of the scene and it makes it a toy train again. So that's just my take on it, and I know there's actually some layouts that I see that the scenery is so pristine and so perfect that it looks like a toy. And even if you weather the models, then it still doesn't look right because you don't have that natural gritty grind that you see around railroads, or even if you're out in nature, everything's not pristine. The grass isn't perfect and the trees are not perfect, and everything is off a little tiny bit, and it's that gives the realism. So I was kind of surprised that people aren't more towards the yes, we all do something. But that's what you guys as the community did. There was 165 votes on that, so that's a fairly decent sampling for a little poll here. So that was interesting. So you know what group you fall into on that, and whatever one it is. I mean, there's not a right or wrong answer because you do what what you want with the hobby. So not necessarily a problem. The second one, and this is probably more towards what I wanted the content of this video to be, is and it was sort of something you needed to finish. So I prompted you with, when I run trains and then you had the 5 options, and that was, the first one was spend most of my time yelling at them because they don't work, and 3% of you actually clicked that one. So I would assume that if that's you, you are in the group that is just beginning and you're figuring out how to do track work, figuring out how to do wiring, figuring out how to do DCC, whatever it is. So you're in your learning stage, and that will get better. If you're a veteran and you're still in that category, then you need to watch more YouTube videos, or you need to read a book or something and get out of that phase, because that was one of those options you weren't supposed to select. You shouldn't be yelling at your models, because then you're not getting the hobby for what the hobby is. You're getting another source of anxiety and anger, and that's not what a hobby should be. So thankfully, there's only 3% of you. Now, the biggest group at 44% of the poll so far, and we got 90 votes on this right now. So I'm going to leave it up for a few more days to see how this changes. But 44% of the 90 votes said you enjoy watching the trains run through the scenery. And I think most model railroaders fall into that category in one way or another, so I was not surprised to see that in the poll. So you spend all this time building this beautiful scenery, and all it is a stage for your actors, the trains, the car, the rolling stock to go through. And so if you're like me, and apparently most of you are, you get a lot of enjoyment by seeing your trains go through that scenery and watch them just sort of navigate through things. You don't need to interact with them necessarily. Maybe hit the bell every so often, the horn at grade crossings, but you're just watching the trains roll through towns and through countryside like you would see them if you were actually rail fanning. So for most of us who are doing a video like the one you're watching now, where trains are just rolling through the video, you're rail fanning your layout, and that makes a lot of sense. And the next one was some of you run switching ops like a seasoned pro. This was the next highest vote at 14%. And that makes sense to me too, because there's a lot of folks who build switching layouts because they like to puzzle. They like using their trains to move cars around, whether the track configuration be realistic or be overly complicated to bring them that enjoyment. But they like shoveling cars around to different places and keeping those things, keeping it sort of like a puzzle game. And that doesn't mean that they don't spend time on their scenery. A lot of those folks have fully detailed little urban layouts where there is a very tight group of industries and things to do. And if you have a larger layout, you may have some of those switching puzzles built into your mainline run. And so I know for me, that's how I have my layout set up, where there are places where the trains can drop cars off, pick cars up, and then of course there's switching that needs done there. So there's multiple jobs on the layout that involve that switching. So if I'm not feeling like I just want to watch trains run in a giant loop for a bit, I can actually interact with those trains and take a locomotive or two and switch out industries, start at a yard and run to a siding and do all the work there. So that makes sense to me. And then a very small percent of you are doing the prototypical operations, where you've got timetables and name trains and fast blocks and schedules and all that sort of stuff. And if that's your thing, that's cool. Those layouts that do that are really involved, and they've set their layout up for operations, and it's really neat. Like if you've ever seen, watch one of those videos on YouTube where you've got multiple people in the room, you've got a dispatcher, you've got yard jobs, you've got the mainline jobs and all that sort of stuff. It's really cool to run your model railroad as a actual railroad, or as close to an actual railroad as possible. And so for you folks, that's hats off to you. It's a very small percentage. That's not really my thing. I take something that's sort of in between, just total freelancing versus I want my trains to look realistic, so I don't want them to necessarily do something that they wouldn't do out in the wild, so to speak. But I also don't want to sit there and develop train names and train numbers and schedules and all that stuff. I'm a sole operator, so to have all of that stuff is an absolute waste, because if I need to get coal cars to an industry, then I will just run a coal train. Or if I need to do some switching at the industrial area, then I will just do that. So I don't need to make up all kinds of funky names and all that sort of stuff for me. So, but and then there was a really big group of you, and it was 36% actually, that said, when I run trains, y'all get time to run your trains. And I think that this is not because these folks, their trains don't run or they have issues, but it's just because it's so hard to find time to actually get down into the model railroad room, especially if you're in a climate where it's seasonal, and now the season is you need to be outside taking care of your property. Then your time in the train room gets very limited, and you may not have that ability. So for those folks that are in that group, I totally understand where you're at. I totally relate to you, and it sucks, but don't forget this is a hobby. It's not a career, so you do it in your free time when you have that free time. And if you can make more free time, that's awesome. If you can't, then you get to it when you can. I think the most important thing in that is that you are enjoying whatever it is that you're doing, because we lose sight of that sometimes. This is a hobby and it's not a job for most of us. So when you go down to the training room, you should be having fun. It should not be a task order that you need to do things and you need to have set deadlines for yourself. So unless you've got an open house or you've got an operating session or something that's very formal like that, you should be enjoying the hobby, taking your time, and don't rush it, because if you enjoy the build, once you rush through the build, then there's nothing left for you in the hobby. If you don't get the enjoyment out of the trains, then you're sort of done. And these people who are habitually tearing apart their layouts and building new layouts, those are the people who they don't. It's not about the trains necessarily. It's not about running. It's about the model building. And so for folks like that, I almost recommend that you do modules and do dioramas. That way you can do them, you can put them together, and you can run them for a little while. And then when you get bored of them, you can either sell them or they're just a little module, and you can scrap them. You see these folks that just build these full layouts, and they're on their second or third huge layout, and there's multiple reasons why you may do that, but for a lot of people, it's just because they got bored with it, and so that's kind of a shame, actually. But in any event, that's the latest polls that I was running out there. I wanted you guys to see that. Don't forget to take a look at the communities page if you are subscribed. I will post those things there from time to time. I also post still images. We don't do Instagram or Facebook or any other BS social media. It is strictly on YouTube right now. So when there's still images or whatnot, it will be posted right at the communities tab, and you can go and look at it, comment on it, and whatnot. So just enjoy the trains running.